Hi, everybody. I'm Liz Heiman, and this is Sales Strategy Doesn't Start in Sales. I hope everybody's having a great day today. Again, I'm Liz Heiman. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Alice Heiman LLC, where we make sure that your sales team is positioned to help you achieve the goals that you want to achieve. And today, I'm your host and presenter today, and again, our topic is Sales Strategy Doesn't Start with Sales. I'm going to say that again because I think it's worth hearing. Sales strategy doesn't start with sales. I know that maybe doesn't seem logical because we typically think that, we've got a product that needs to be sold. And so it's very simple. You have this product. In order to survive, you need to sell that product. The revenue from the sales is used to create more products and to pay employees and vendors. So the CFO creates a budget with revenue and expenses. You hand the expenses side out to the department heads and budgets. You hand the revenue side to the sales team as their goals. The company's survival rests on the shoulders of a sales team who's been given a number that has only to do with need and nothing to do with capabilities. There's nothing strategic about that. I hope that your budgeting process is more strategic than that, but I'm amazed at how many companies do exactly this without really looking at what sales needs in order to be successful. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. What is it that your sales team needs in order to be successful? So before I go any further, I want to make sure that everyone can hear. Is there anybody out there that's having trouble hearing? How many of you have been on a Bright Talk before? Do you guys know how to, if you go into questions from the audience or questions, you can answer any of the questions that I'm asking you. So if you will take a second and tell me if you've been on a Bright Talk before, I would love to hear that answer. That is how I would know that there are actually people out there. Okay, can you all hear me all right? Okay. All right, then I'm going to keep going. So what we're going to talk about is what your sales team needs. Sales is the very heart of your business. It's what keeps the lifeblood pumping. Yet for many companies, sales companies, sales teams sit on an island of their own with revenue target in front of them and a hatchet at their back. It's not a great feeling. Okay, so it looks like you guys are hearing loud and clear and that several of you have been on a Bright Talk and some of you have not. So I'm just going to back up. For those of you who have not been on a Bright Talk, go ahead and share your questions as you get them, and I'll answer them as I can. I might wait until the very end to answer a question. So go ahead and share your questions as you go. Okay, so here you have your sales team out on an island all their own. But successful companies know that the entire organization needs to be a selling machine, and that the sales organization is just one piece of a well-oiled machine focused on supporting sales and delivering products and service. What's amazing to me is how many companies don't understand that your sales team is part of your larger organization. So that having been said, a lot needs to happen before you can look at your sales team and say, hit those numbers. That's not usually what happens. Because as I said, the CFO comes up with numbers, Board agrees, you hand them to the sales team. Let me back up and give you an example of what I mean. So recently I've been working with a company that's creating a rather complex marketing ecosystem. They require a multi-tiered approach to market development and a very clear targeted sales plan. What I mean by that is that they need to be selling at the manufacturing level, the retail store level, and the agency level to achieve strategy goals for this company. So what actually happened was the salespeople were given a revenue target. Hang on, sorry you guys, I have noise here. Oh, sorry, hang on just a second, guys. So what happened was the sales team was given a number, and they just went ahead and started selling. And you can guess what they did. They focused on selling the easiest, lowest hanging fruit that they could possibly find. And the result was not only were these not the target companies, but they tended to be companies that required a tremendous amount of extra work and programming. So rather than focusing on these large corporate clients they should have been focusing on, they were focusing on franchises and small specialty companies. Well, I don't need to tell you that with a strategy like that, this company is not going to be around very long. So I asked the CEO, I said, hey, why are your salespeople selling to these companies that are not part of your strategic goals? And his answer was, well, we need revenue and we need it now. And all I could think was, you need strategy and you need it now. So it's funny because that's one way this conversation sounds, but it often also sounds a lot like this. My sales team sucks. The sales they're selling are too small, the cycle's taking too long, and they can't close, and we're not retaining customers. So how many of you feel like that about your sales team or have heard leadership say that about your sales team? Are there any of you that are hearing that kind of discussion about your sales team now? Well, there's a couple reasons that you could have a conversation that sounds like that. One could be that your sales team really does suck. One could be that your product really isn't very good. One could be that you haven't identified your ideal customer profile. But chances are that what's really happened is that senior leadership has not translated their strategy into a working set of tools that deliver the results that are needed. Translation, the company needs a strategy that spells out the goals, the ideal customer profile, a list of ideal customers or target customers, positioning, and timelines. Your corporate strategy is the roadmap for your entire company, and the employees of your company use that chart or use that map to chart their own success. Sales teams need to be your sales teams need a solid business strategy in order to build a solid sales strategy. And they need corporate support in order to execute that strategy successfully. So let's be really specific about what your sales team needs from you in order to be successful. they need to understand the big picture. They need an ideal customer criteria. They need a list of at least 100 top target logos that you're shooting for. I'm working with a company now that has 971 targets they've identified specifically. You need to decide what the right number is, but your team needs to know who those target logos are. They need clear positioning statements. They need value propositions, and they need buy-in from every department in your company. And I would love to hear from you. How many of you think that your sales team has support and buy-in from every department in your company? Go ahead and let me know. It takes a little while for your responses to come in, but let me know. Does your sales team have buy-in from every department? Do they have support from every department? Okay. Well, while you're thinking about that, because I'd love to hear your answers, we're going to come back to that in just a minute. But let's talk about the big picture. Your sales team, it may seem like all they need to do is just go out and sell, but truly they need to understand the bigger picture. They need to know what you're doing and why. I want to back up and tell you a story. I used to work for a company called Heiman, and we worked with, at that time, almost exclusively Fortune 500 companies. I worked with some of the best sales teams in the entire world. Fisher Rosemont, Coca-Cola, Hewlett-Packard, and an interesting thing happened. At every single one of my presentations, we would have to stop at some point and talk about what they called all of the stupid things corporate is doing to undermine sales. And here's what I mean. They would say things like, they're getting rid of the product our customers buy most. They added a bunch of products no one wants, and they expect us to sell them. Or my favorite, just because they're giving me a bigger commission on some product doesn't mean people will buy them. So imagine for a minute that your company has just spent $20,000 for the day for your sales team to go through training to be better salespeople, and they are going to sit there and tell me how you, as corporate who are supporting this training, are undermining the sales effort. So I don't really believe that those things are undermining the sales effort, but what I think is that the company has made decisions and hasn't explained it to sales. And if that's what your company has done, shame on you. You understand something about where the company is going, where the market's going, how you intend to capture the new market, how you intend to leverage technology changes, and your sales team needs to understand so they can bring their customers with you and they can have the mindset and the attitude they need to sell. It's really important that they understand the big picture. Second, they need you to develop an ideal customer profile for them. And the reason they need that is that is how they prioritize their work. You know, I don't know if you've ever heard this statistic, but I've been told that in some companies, 90% of leads from marketing never get followed up by sales. 90%. Can you imagine the investment being wasted? And when I stop and think about this, there's a couple of things going on. One is what marketing identifies as a qualified lead and what sales identifies as a qualified lead are not the same thing. So that's one thing that needs to be reconciled. But the second is that your sales team needs to understand who your ideal customers are. What is the description of your ideal customer? And when they understand that, they're able then to look at the leads that are coming from marketing and make decisions about how to prioritize their time so that at least if 90% still end up on the cutting room floor, they've prioritized those companies that are the best fit for your company, the ones that will have the shortest sales cycle, and the ones that are most likely to close and be the best customers in the long run. So you absolutely need to provide your team with an ideal customer profile or criteria. And there's an article that I've attached called Not Every Target Customer is an Ideal Customer. And that explains in more detail what an ideal customer profile is and how to best create one. I'll also be talking about that next week in my next Bright Talk. So your team also needs for you to come up with a top 100 target prospects, or however many that is that's appropriate for your company. But they need to not only understand who those customers are, they need to understand why those 100 logos or 1,000 logos or 50 logos or whatever it is. They need to understand, is that because you need that particular market share in order to achieve your strategic goals for the company? Is it because the revenue opportunities in those logos are the best? Is it because you need the bragging rights associated with those particular logos? Or is it because those companies really are the best fit, and so they'll be the easiest sales and the fastest sales and the longest lasting customers? But it's not sufficient to just say, hey, go sell these. Your team needs to understand the why so that they, again, can prioritize their time and achieve the goals that you need them to achieve. So fourth, you need to make sure that your team understands your brand positioning. So it's a very complex market, and more being able to say where you fit in that market, what your specific niche is, and how you want to be perceived is increasingly important. Are you the low price leader? Are you the ethical choice? Are you changing the way the world works? Are you bringing technology to places it's never been before? What is your positioning in the market? Your sales culture and selling practices should match the brand and positioning. If, for example, you aren't the low price leader, why are you negotiating on price? Think about who it is that you want to be and give your sales team the tools they need to communicate about your product and your company in order to be successful. If you're not sure about positioning, I just read a great book called The Red Goldfish by Stan Phelps and Graham Newell. And again, if you look at the uploads page or the attachments page or whatever it's called, attachments and links, I believe is what the page is called. You can find the link, the Amazon link to that book. I really enjoyed reading this book, and it was because they have an interesting twist on positioning that may help you and your company find space in this very complex, really helpful, and I think you'll enjoy it if you haven't yet. Your team will also need from you, this is number 5, a clear understanding of who all of your buyers are and what your value prop is for each of those. So if you have not created buyer personas that are appropriate for sales, which is very different than buyer personas for marketing, if you have not created them, you need to create them. And then you need to create the value proposition. So if I am a sales rep and I'm going in to talk to the CEO, my value proposition for the company that I'm selling to may be the same, but my value prop for the CEO is going to be really different than the value prop for the VP of sales or for the CFO. So take time and make sure that your salespeople have the value propositions they need so that they can communicate effectively with your customers about the value of your product and some of these conversations. Okay, and sixth, and finally, and I think vitally important, is you need buy-in from your entire company. Every department in the company needs to be to support sales. Your sales team simply can't be an island on their own. Everyone in the company needs to understand what the sales team is doing and why. They need to understand how what the sales team is doing is driving the bigger strategy. Yet every company I have ever worked for has at least one sales prevention department. I bet you guys have a sales prevention department. And so I'm going to give you a little warning because I really do want some feedback on this part. I haven't been getting much feedback. But I want to talk to you about sales prevention departments. And I'm sure that you have one or more in your company. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the sales prevention departments I've seen. And while I'm writing, I would love to hear who you think the sales prevention teams are or departments are in your company. So one of my favorite and the most surprising sales prevention departments I've seen is onboarding. Now you would think that when you sell a product that the team, the onboarding team would be so excited that they would be right there working with sales. But that's not always the case. So what happens is you tell your salespeople to hit their numbers and they sell it, and then production or onboarding can't fulfill. And so they have to go back to the customer they just closed and say, hey, it's going to be 6 months before we can onboard you. Nothing is worse for a salesperson than to close a deal and lose it because the company can't fulfill in a timely way. Can you imagine? How would you feel? Remember, your sales team gets paid primarily on commission. So they've invested all that time and all those corporate resources only to lose a deal. That hurts. Legal is one of the most prominent sales prevention departments. And what I want to say to every legal department is stop looking for reasons the sales can't close and start looking for ways to help the salespeople make it work for the client. Legal's job is to protect the company, but preventing sales is not protecting the company. Accounting. Accounting is my favorite. It isn't much fun for a salesperson to get on the phone with a client or that accounting has been harassing them for payment. Yes, we need our clients to pay. But we need our accounting department to partner with our clients to come up with solutions that help keep them as customers. And if we decide we're not going to keep someone as a customer, would you please tell your sales team before they pick up the phone and get yelled at by someone who accounting has been harassing? So those are the ones that I come up with off the top of my head. Who are your sales prevention departments? Come on, you guys, share with me. How many of you have a legal department that is a sales prevention department? No. Oh, somebody just wrote that the sound is gone. Can you hear me? Well, I'm going to keep talking. If you can't hear me, will you let me know? And if you can hear me, that would be good to let me know too. Okay, so I'm not hearing who your sales prevention departments are, but I'd really like you to keep talking to me about that because I'd like to talk a little bit more about that before we go on. I want to remind you before we move from there that your salespeople were probably not hired because they're good at accounting or because they're good at paperwork or because they're good at corporate process. So when your accounting department is hounding sales, remember that yes, it's important to get all that documentation, but your sales team is probably not really ideally suited for that kind of work. So if your salespeople are anything like most of the salespeople I know, they work really, really hard. They work all hours of the day and night. They get calls at home at all hours of the day and night. They jump on planes. They fight traffic to get to meetings where they suffer abuse at the hands of clients. They suffer rejection. They're exhausted and stressed. And they're the ones who get the call. They're the first ones that get a call when customers are unhappy. So how do you suppose it feels when people hear? And here's typically the kinds of things they hear. Those salespeople, they're always out to lunch on the company dime. Must be nice to travel and never have to work. Those guys are never in the office. Are they ever working? Expense reports are simple. I just don't understand why they can't get them done on time. They call us at the last minute and expect us to drop everything for them. Why don't they get a better plan? How many of you have heard, oh, manufacturing is your sales prevention? Good, let's talk about that later. How many of you have heard people in your company talking this way about your sales team? Can you imagine how that feels? I have a solution to that, by the way. If you hear somebody in your company bad-mouthing sales because they're spending too much money or they're never in the office or they don't get this done or that done or they don't plan, send them out with sales for a week. Just no excuses. No, I have to babysit my kids. No, I have to be home for dinner. No, I don't work after 5. Let them actually follow. Let them actually follow your sales team and see what it's like, because really, I have never met a sales team that didn't work really, really hard. And it's very hard to keep your motivation up when you're being complained about, when you sit on the outside, when you're not supported. Everyone in your company is part of the sales team. So I wonder, does everybody in your company understand that they're part of the sales team? Do they all understand that without customers, there is no company, and that without sales, there are no customers? I wonder what they're doing to support the sales effort. So I believe that strategy is power. And I believe that your vision, your mission, your values, and your goals help everyone on the team understand their roles and to see how their roles fit together to support the overall strategy. And when everybody understands that, when they understand, when they work together, the sales strategy, that just flows naturally. So if you're interested in building a kick-ass sales strategy, that's what I'm going to be doing this same bat time, same bat channel next week. And if you don't know, I've just aged myself for you. If you don't know that saying, go ahead and check out Batman, the old 1960s Batman on YouTube, and you'll see they ended every session, every show with same bat time, same bat channel. But next week, same time, literally, on Bright Talk, I will be doing a discussion on how to build a kick-ass sales strategy. And in the meantime, I hope I'll see you there, but in the meantime, I hope that you will work on your sales strategy and be sure that everyone understands their role in the sales strategy. And then I challenge you to challenge every employee in your company to see how they can support sales, or at least to stop hindering sales, because happy salespeople are effective salespeople. Someone appreciated my same bat time, same bat place. So I want to thank you for your time, but I want to spend some time now and go through some of these sales prevention departments. Actually, I'm not going to give you a thank you yet. So one of the participants says, one of my clients is shipping as, okay, and I just got it, there's no sound again, so if you can't hear me, let me know. One of my clients has shipping as their sales prevention department. They would fail to ship for many reasons, mostly holding on orders for items, but they wouldn't tell the salespeople, and the salespeople would get angry calls from companies. Does that sound familiar to you? So it's bad enough that they're not actually delivering, but imagine you want your sales team out selling. If your sales team's going to be out selling, they need to be really positive and really excited, and they need all the positive mindset they can get to get out there and sell. And yet they're getting calls from angry people because shipments that they sold weren't delivered, and no one even told them so that they could call and let the companies know that the sales were going to be late. So manufacturing, another person said that manufacturing was their sales prevention department. And I wonder how many of you face that, whether it's your manufacturing department or your operations department, or like I said, your onboarding. If they're not delivering, if they're not producing what your salespeople went out and sold, again, who hears the bad news? It's going to be your sales team. And so instead of spending their time out prospecting, building relationships, closing business, they're calling your clients, your customers who paid for product, and explaining and apologizing and asking for extensions and getting in a really negative mindset and having a really hard time focusing on what they need to be focusing on, which is those logos that you gave them that they need to close. So I'm sure you guys have other sales prevention departments. And what I would ask you now I'm going to open the floor for questions for anybody who would like to ask questions, but I would also challenge you right now. If you looked around your company right this minute, what could you do to help support sales? Or which departments could you call on to change their attitude, to change their tone, or to change their behavior to support your sales team? And again, I encourage you, share it with me so I can share with everyone else what you're dealing with and what you think would be the best solutions. And I'm also going to open the floor to questions. So while I'm waiting for you guys to share, so let's go back, for example, to the accounting department. If you're in accounting and your job is collections and you're collecting with existing clients who are going to be selling more business, then what might you do in order to support sales so that sales doesn't get either a surprise call or make a call and get a surprised angry customer on the other end? So for instance, if you have a customer that isn't paying, your accounting department could be calling sales and saying, hey, we have a customer that's not paying. How would you like us to handle this? And the salesperson might say, oh, you really need to call Jerry, not Sue. Or the salesperson would say, I don't know, let me call Joe and find out what's going on. But accounting could be partnering with sales. And sales might say, I don't know, just do what you can do. But rather than surprising sales, they could be partnering. Okay, so I don't have anything from you about how you could be calling on your departments to support sales, and I don't have any questions. So typically, here are some of the questions that I get asked. One of the questions is, how do you create an ideal customer profile that your salespeople can really use? And I would say that one of the best ways to do that is to look at your existing customers. So go back to your existing customers from last year, or the sales that you made last year. Go look at the work that you did last year. Make a spreadsheet and figure out who are the customers that are buying the most from you, who are the customers that are taking the most work, who are the customers that close relatively easily. And from there, you'll be able to start working on your ideal customer profile. Who are the customers that are spending a lot of money with you? Why are they spending a lot of money with you? What customers would you be looking for that would also spend a lot of money with you? Who are customers that don't require a lot of additional work? And how would you find more customers like that spend a lot of money but don't require a lot of work and support from your clients. So that's how I would start building an ideal customer profile. Other questions that I get asked have to do with positioning. And again, I would say that that book that I mentioned, the goldfish, the red goldfish, would be a great way to think about it. But go back to marketing and have them sit down with the team and talk about how would you like to be positioned in the marketplace? How would you like to be perceived in the marketplace? What do you need to do differently in order to be positioned and perceived the way you want to be perceived? Because I believe that good sales strategy doesn't start in sales, that getting your departments to work across departments with sales to solve some of these problems is a great idea. Okay, are there any other questions? All right. Well, then I am going to let you go. I hope that you had a great time with me. I had a great time with you for this half hour. And don't forget attachments and reach me at liz@aliceheiman.com. And if you had a question that you wanted to ask but you didn't feel like you could ask it to the group, go ahead and send me an email. I'd be happy to answer it. If you would like some great articles, you can always look at aliceheiman.com. And there are all kinds of articles on sales and sales strategy in our blog. And I will say adieu. I hope I see you next week. Have a great day and a great rest of your week. And I am just going to sit here for a little while in case anybody comes up with questions, but I hope you guys have a great day.